That's Brittany.
That was Jonathan.
And today we're going to be working on the Wednesday portion of the lesson. So we're going to be reading the punchlines listed in this week's lesson, and we're going to choose one that speaks to us the most today. And the punchlines, all right, the first one is Hebrews 12, verse 11. Now, discipline always seems painful rather than pleasant at the time, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. Genesis 18, verse 19. For I have chosen him so that he will direct his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just, so that the Lord will bring about for Abraham what he has promised him. The next is Proverbs 22, verse 6. Start children off on the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it. Ephesians 6, verse 4, Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. Proverbs 19, verse 18, Discipline your children, for in that there is hope. Do not be a willing party to their death. And the last one, Colossians 3, verse 21, Fathers, do not embitter your children, or they will become discouraged. All right. So, which one speaks the most to you?
For me, Proverbs 19, verse 18 is the one that gets to me the most. Mostly because it just reminds me that whatever I choose to do can determine whether or not someone goes away from the path that they're supposed to be on, or whether they follow Christ.
For me, I'd pick the first one, Hebrews 12, verse 11, because in the moment, no one likes to be scolded or corrected or disciplined for their actions. But when you keep in mind that it's only to make sure that you stay on the right path, and you look at it that way, you're like, okay, it's not so bad. Later on in life, you'll appreciate that correction, that whoever gave it to you, and it will bear fruit. Which verse seems to capture the message of this week's story of Eli and his sons, Hophni and Phinehas?
I think Genesis 18, verse 19 says a lot about that. For I have chosen him so that he will direct his children and his household. Because God chooses every parent to direct their children in the right way, right? And the fact that it's literally written in the first book of the Bible that's how it's supposed to be, and Eli just didn't.
Eli's circumstance reminds me of the one you chose, Proverbs 19, verse 18. You need to discipline your children, and because if you do, there's hope for them. If not, you're just going to watch them die. And that was literally Eli. He was warned about it, and he really didn't do anything about it. And he sat around and watched his kids die. Not actually watch them, but both his kids died because of his lack of action.
He watched them enjoy their earthly life, but also watched them give up their eternal life.
It's a very sad time. Maybe this week you will encounter someone who, like Hophni and Phinehas, has no regard for the Lord. What will be your response to such a person? So if you met somebody, some kid, some adult who is just enjoying the earthly life and has no regard for God, what would be your response to that person? How would you talk to that person?
Personally, I think that most people's first reaction would be to tell them what they're doing wrong and to try to explain to them how they can follow Christ instead of just being a Christ-like person. But people who are on that path won't take your advice seriously. They take your character seriously. So I think that just being a loving and kind person and not judgmental will have more of an impact on the rest of their life than telling them what you think is wrong.
Indeed. like you said, the first thing you want to do is to correct that person, and that should be the last thing that you want to do, that you should be doing. But at the same time, it's hard when you see someone who's just out of control. And when something's out of control, the first knee-jerk reaction is to control it, to get it under control. But the way you get something under control will determine how successful. Because if you have a leaky faucet and you just whack on it with a hammer till it doesn't leak anymore, that's great. You solved the problem, but now you can't use that faucet anymore because now it's smashed shut. Instead of taking the time to fully understand why the faucet is leaky and how to fix it properly. So I think we should take the time to understand why people are doing what they're doing and how, you can help them properly so that way, they're not broken afterwards. You might encounter a parent who feels regret about their parenting choices. How could you be a source of encouragement to them? Now, this is a big question because Cornerstone, you're regarded as just a teen who has that's what I'm looking for. No experience, you don't know what it's like, etc., etc. People use that a lot. You have no idea what it's like walking in my shoes and etc., 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 blah, blah, blah. Yes, that may be true, but that doesn't mean you can't encourage somebody. If you hear someone's having a hard time, you can still offer some words of encouragement like, be of good faith, God is always there to help you. He'll be there to support you through thick and thin.
I think that although you may not have enough experience to tell them how to parent and help them in that aspect, you do have experience being the kid. And if you meet a parent that is regretting their parenting choices, you can look back at your life and be like, oh, my parents did this and what did they do differently? And not necessarily say you should do this, but be like, hey, my mom used to do this. Maybe that would be a good idea for you. Or my mom used to do this and it really didn't help me. You have experience being that.
On the receiving end of parenting.
Yeah.
Than the giving end of parenting.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, I know that my parents didn't necessarily know all the ins and outs of parenting. They didn't do everything that they should have done, but I still turned out okay. So I feel like that can be an encouragement to a parent like that, even if you feel like you were the worst parent. Try to find the things that you did well in, and you can always redeem yourself. It's never too late. Okay, so I think that that's everything for Wednesday.
Yeah, indeed. All right, stay in school.
Sabbath school. Stay in Sabbath school.